info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is the fastest growing talk radio station in Southern California, home to 50,000 watts and an audience reach of 12 million listeners. KBLA Talk 1580 is a pioneer for black audio content, including our groundbreaking $2 million climate justice campaign and the most loyal, influential audience. According to an independent research study by the polling firm Aviterus, for the second consecutive year, KBLA Talk 1580 is the most trustworthy, reliable, and credible news source for black audiences and beyond in Southern California. Let KBLA Talk 1580 power your advertising dollars. Our omni-channel custom marketing solutions are specifically tailored to connect with your ideal target audience. We leverage audio, podcasts, streaming, digital, social media, and local activations to get your message out to the black community. Get in touch with our advertising team today at advertising@kbla1580.com. That's advertising at kbla1580.com. KBLA 1580. We've got your black.
Live from historic Leimert Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me back in stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley and get updates on X, that's formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. By the way, should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, you can always visit thetavissmileyshow.com. That's thetavissmileyshow.com, or wherever you get your podcast, and listen to the Tavis Smiley podcast version of this live program at your leisure. Another great show on tap for you today. In our second hour, two conversations. Up first, University of San Diego Dean Kimberly White Smith is back with ways we can all support our neurodivergent fellow citizens as part of Autism Awareness Month. On the B side of hour two, UCLA's Dr. Marcus Anthony Smart joins us to discuss a letter signed by over 400 lawmakers, activists, and actors, and more, for that matter, calling on President Biden to support a list of congressional bills on racial equity and reparative justice through executive actions and orders. Full transparency here. Yours truly is one of those 400-plus persons who affixed their signature to that letter to the president. So we'll talk about the letter to the president on the backside of hour two with Dr. Marcus Anthony Hunter later in today's program. In our third hour,
the arts really help us develop another side of our brain. I'd like to think that it helps us to develop the compassionate side of us. You know, New Orleans is one of those cities where either you're a musician or you have been heavily affected by the music. When I began with Roger Dickinson, you know, when I was a kid, that was an amazing time in my life. He taught me in such a way where everything that I had written or would write, I had to explain. Melody, counterlines, bass lines, I had to explain where they came from. There had to be some relevance to the original musical idea, which really started to make me understand about, you know, being concise. And that's what teachers do. That's what the good ones do. When it came time to go to college, I looked at a lot of schools. And what it really boiled down to was who were the trumpet teachers. I stayed with Paul Jeffries before school started. And he was playing in Lionel Hampton's band at the time. And he took me on one of the gigs and told me to bring my horn. And the band is setting up and, some of the trumpet players asked me to pull out my horn and play. And then Lionel Hampton walked up behind me and goes, "Hey man, let me hear you play a blues with the piano player." So I played the blues with him, and the next thing you know, I was in the band. It was an education being around those guys, because they would all play on a high level, everybody in that group. And I was the youngest guy in the group. And, and it was interesting because they treated me with respect, but they treated me like a pro, like they had expectations. And I think that band really helped prepare me to be in Art Blakey's band.
The NEA, the National Endowment for the Arts, has trumpeter Terrence Blanchard on its 2024 list of jazz masters. We are going to celebrate that high honor, tee up the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival, and talk about his Grammy Award-winning opera, Fire, Shut Up in My Bones, when jazz master Terrence Blanchard joins us later today in Hour 3. But in this first hour today, let's talk politics with the host of the Shermichael Singleton Show on SiriusXM, Shermichael Singleton. Shermichael, how are you today, sir?
Hey, Tavis, I'm doing well. Happy Monday, and thanks for having me back.
No, it's good to have you on the program. Let me just jump right to the news of the day, politically at least. Opening statements today in the trial of Donald Trump. We were told a week or so ago that it might take a few weeks to seat this jury. They sped that process up. There were some issues with certain jurors. 2 of them dismissed a few days ago. They've now spoken to the press and expressed their own views about why they wanted off this jury. We'll talk about that as we move through this hour. But nonetheless, the judge in this case, Judge Merchan, got those jurors seated. And today, opening arguments will be heard. Opening statements will be heard today in this case of Donald Trump. There are other cases, of course, but this one is the one that has our attention at the moment. And I don't want to color the first question too much. Just what do you make of the fact that this? I mean, it's surreal in many ways. We keep using that word, as I said last week, unprecedented. But how did you just read? And just give me in a minute or two before we get started here more deeply. How do you read that we are at this moment?
I mean, look, it's a former president who is the soon-to-be nominee of one of the 2 major parties in court facing potential felony charges. We've never seen anything like this. And as a strategist, I've been asked this question multiple times on CNN. What does this mean for Trump in terms of politics? And, I've said in a very eerie kind of way, I guess he somehow is going to have to figure out a way to bring the campaign to the courtroom. But as a strategist, I wouldn't know necessarily how to do that because this is really unprecedented territory, Travis, not only historically, but even in terms of electoral politics.
Yeah, no, it is unprecedented in a lot of ways, and we'll unpack some of that as best we can as we move through this first hour. Please be joined by Shermichael Singleton on Tavis Smiley.
This is getting good.
Yeah, man.
Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
Hey y'all, Mona Swain here from Target's new YouTube series, My Cart is Full, where we feature Black founders and creators highlighting their connection to our community. As an actor and content creator, I love using my voice to inspire young Black women who look like me. When it comes to feeding my shine, seeing myself reflected in Black-owned and founded products at Target brings me joy. Together, we are Black Beyond Measure. Learn more at target.com/Black Beyond Measure.
Cookie wants to be a professional wrestler.
I'm Cookie Serratos, and I'm 11 years old.
She also wants to win all the medals. That's why Cookie and her family make every day count, squeezing out her best with Go-Go Squeeze.
Okay, Cookie, let's break for a Go-Go Squeeze.
Go-Go Squeeze fruit-on-the-go pouches are a nutritious snack made from 100% fruit with no sugar added.
Call Cookie!
Because when you nurture your kids, you squeeze out the best in them. Squeeze out the best with Go-Go Squeeze. Not a low-calorie food. Products range from 11 to 13 grams of sugar and 60 to 70 calories per serving.
It's time for California Community College's Black Student Success Week. This week-long event, held April 22nd through the 26th, is an opportunity to focus on innovative approaches to ensuring Black and African American students succeed in their educational pursuits. Black Student Success Week 2024, building a better future together. The urgency is now. For more information, visit blackstudentsuccess.com. That's blkstudentsuccess.com.
Getting connected has never been easier. Get free Wi-Fi at all LA County library locations, inside the library and outside in the parking lots. Visit your local library and get connected today.
JP Morgan Chase is building on the investments in California to help close the racial wealth gap and build a more equitable future. Visit jpmorganchase.com/racial equity and get the tools to help reach your financial goals.
Some days I cover up because of my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis.
Now I'm hitting the road with clearer skin thanks to Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. With Skyrizi, 3 out of 4 people achieved 90% clearer skin at 4 months. And Skyrizi is just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
Thanks to Skyrizi, there's nothing on my skin, and that means everything. Your doctor today about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist prescribed biologic in psoriasis, and visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKY-RIZI to learn more.
Made fresh daily in Leimert Park, Los Angeles, California. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
I think you all know this, but let me just tee this up for you one more again, as we say, with regard to what's happening in New York, even as we speak. So this is the case brought by Alvin Bragg, the brother, African-American DA in Manhattan. He's accusing Donald Trump in this case of falsifying business records to cover up hush money payments during his 2016 campaign. Arriving at the courthouse today, Trump claimed the trial was, these are his words, and I quote, election interference. And part of an effort to keep him off the campaign trail, he called the case a witch hunt. He called the case a shame. New York law does not allow recording of criminal proceedings, and so this case will not be televised. I think we'd all benefit from seeing it on television, but New York law does not allow criminal proceedings to be televised. So all the networks have persons in the courtroom or in a overflow room nearby watching on closed circuit. So that they can write their stories and report to us what's happening in real time in this case. So that's the setup. So, Shermichael, that said, let me just ask a few things relative to that. Mm-hmm. You teed this up a moment ago, and before I get to Donald Trump's comments on his way into the courthouse today, your comments a moment ago on this program about how he's going to navigate being in court every day and being on the campaign trail. I can't find a better word than historic, unprecedented. We've never seen anything like this, where a former president who is running for re-election, running to be re-elected again, third consecutive time, which is historic in its own right, that he's been the nominee of his party. But how does he navigate being in trial, being on the campaign trail, and how does he use one to aid and abet the other?
I mean, look, for the next 60 days, Tavis, he is not going to be able to travel the country. And you've heard Trump lately complain about, I can't be in Georgia or Pennsylvania, wherever else he would prefer to be. So with that reality in mind, if I were a strategist tasked with being a part of the team to figure this out, I would probably advise the former president to speak less about the trials per se being a witch hunt or persecution. And I would probably focus more on the fact that inflation is still a problem. Most people can't afford gas, which is actually going to go up with the summer months quickly approaching. The cost of food is still high. Rent in every major city is still substantially high. Buying baby formula is still high. If you're a family and you have to take care of a loved one, being able to afford for some type of home care aid is up nearly 20%. I would talk about the fact that immigration is still a problem. And while we want immigrants to come to the country, we try to be an open place. The reality is that there are a lot of Americans, Tavis, of every ethnicity, who are struggling in every way. They're struggling to take advantage of already limited resources, already limited housing availability, and to throw in millions of new people and say, well, now we got to figure this out while also trying to help you too. The math just doesn't always add up. And so I would speak to those very real issues that are impacting Americans. And I would say, from a Republican perspective, obviously, under Joe Biden, this is the reality. And it is not a great reality. And if Trump wants to add in some of the trial stuff, then I would say, look, Democrats are going through a route where most legal scholars say if you're going to go after him, this should not have been the case. Silas Vance, the last DA from the Southern District of New York, passed on it. He said Michael Cohen was not a credible witness. And if you want to throw in more politics, I would say, look, respect to Alvin Bragg, but when he was running for DA, he made several presumptive statements about my guilt or innocence without having seen any evidence at the time. Trump wants to talk a lot about the jury being slated against him. I would say, look, Manhattan is a place that voted almost 80% for my opponent. There are very few Republicans here. That is not to say that the jury system in totality is tainted, but it certainly is to say that maybe moving the trial somewhere else that's a little more balanced would lead to a more fair outcome. And so there are a couple points that could be made strategically as it pertains to the case. But again, those points, in my opinion, as a strategist, should be less compared to really making the overall points about the everyday issues that people are obviously still struggling with.
I must tell you, that's brilliant advice. I was thinking it's too bad that Donald Trump ain't listening right now. We know where he is right now. He's not listening to this program to hear the advice that you are offering him. But strategically, I'm no Trump fan. Most of my audience are not Trump fans, I suspect. But it's strategically brilliant advice. And what you essentially just said, as I heard it, and again, I couldn't agree more, is that if you're going to step to the microphone on your way into court or when you leave court every day, if you're going to step to the microphone, you ought to be focusing your comments on their issues, not your issues. That is to say, their being the issues of the voters that you just laid out brilliantly. Focus on their issues and not so much on yours. I get that strategically. And yet, there are at least two things that come to mind. Number one, I don't know, well, actually three things. One, I don't know that he has the discipline to do that, number one. It's brilliant strategically. I don't know if he has the discipline to do it. Secondly, I'm concerned, we'll break these down and talk about them. Secondly, I'm concerned about how much leeway this judge is going to give him before he violates or finds him in violation of that gag order. As you know, last week, Alvin Bragg asked the judge immediately to find Trump already in violation of the gag order. So the point is that the more you try to campaign, whatever comes out of your mouth, the more you step to that bank of microphones going in or leaving that court, the greater risk he runs of violating at some point this particular gag order. Now, it also puts the judge in a difficult situation, it seems to me, because the guy is running for president. And you don't want to be accused of violating his right to free speech, his right to express himself outside of that courtroom. So this is some really, really, really tricky terrain that this judge and all the rest of us, frankly, have to navigate with regard to when the judge thinks, in this case, he's gone too far, crossing the line of the gag order. The other thought that comes to me, and I'll shut up and let you respond to all these things any way you want, but as you were running that list, again, of advice that you'd offer the president, the former president, that is, Donald Trump, the third and final thing that sort of came to me was that while he could step to those bank of microphones coming in and going out, and address the concerns of the American people, that really isn't quite at the epicenter of his narrative. His narrative is, as he already said, that I'm being not prosecuted but persecuted. It is election interference. We'll get to that part in just a second, because that's a strong indictment that this is election interference. And the question is whether or not his voters and supporters will see it that particular way. But there's a lot there. You can take any part you want, and we'll jump from there, Shermichael.
Yeah, look, so the first part about the discipline, that is a problem. I mean, I was watching a news program earlier today, and a reporter from that program, one of their correspondents, was saying that she was talking with some of his senior advisors off the record. And they were sort of saying, look, this is not helpful. We would prefer to be talking about campaign issues, policy issues. We would like to be showcasing the difference between us and the Biden administration. So that is a real problem for the former president. But I think at some point, Tavis, you have to have an honest conversation with the principal, that being the candidate, and say, look, I get you have your way of wanting to do this, but the reality is this is going to be a tight race. And you are going to have to incorporate certain practices that may seem foreign to you. And that means being disciplined. That means sticking to the message. As much as you may hate it, this could make the difference between you winning or losing. And if you really want to win, then you're going to have to listen to us. On the part about the gag order, I think you're right. And the judge is supposed to address that actually tomorrow.
Exactly.
Last week's points by AD Bragg, or DA Bragg, rather, excuse me. It is a fine line, Tavis, because this man is running for president.
Yep.
And you do need to provide some path for him to not only be able to talk about the kitchen table issues that I just outlined, but to also be able to draw some distinctions to this case for what he would believe is a persecution, and to at least raise in the minds of some swing voters, I don't really like Trump. Yeah, he probably should have been better with his business records. But is it ideal to do this right now? A lot of these people did make political statements about him. A lot of them did, use this as messaging points when running for office. Did that make sense? Was that wise? Probably not. He should be able to make that distinction, Tavis, without making personal attacks against a judge, without making personal attacks against Mr. Bragg and his family and other individuals involved with this case. And you can do that. You can connect those dots without making it personal.
Yeah.
And that's another issue that Trump doesn't always do very effectively.
No, and my view is, let's just take the comments he made on the way into court today. My view is that as a candidate and as a citizen, he does in fact have the right to call this case a witch hunt. I do not believe that it is, but as a matter of free speech and his personal point of view, I would not support a judge gagging him for calling this a witch hunt. Frankly, I wouldn't gag him for calling this election interference. Now, I don't agree with any of those statements, but I think those things are inside the realm of things that he can get away with saying. He clearly cannot talk about the jurors. He clearly cannot talk about the judge. He clearly cannot talk about the court employees. He can't talk about Alvin Bragg and his family. I get that part. And so there is a line here. But in many ways, I'm not so sure how thick or how thin that line really is. But the comments he's made today, for example, I don't think those kinds of comments should subject him to a gag order. And I have no support. There's no support here and very little respect at all for Donald Trump. But I'm open-minded enough, and I want to believe that I'm fair enough. I believe in fundamental fairness. I believe in due process. I believe in the presumption of innocence. I believe in all those things, even for Donald Trump. Again, it's going to be a real tricky terrain that this judge has to navigate. But I don't think comments like those today, Shermichael, should as a presidential candidate, should subject him to a gag order. That's my take. What's yours?
I mean, Tavis, I agree with you. It's not only that you're fair, it's because you're also objective. And that's a part of the argument that Donald Trump should make. I mean, every news channel, maybe with the exception of Fox, they're covering this 24/7 because it's going to be a ratings blockbuster. You're seeing the clips all over the place, all over YouTube. This is an incredible opportunity for Trump to make a distinction between himself and President Biden on a litany of policy issues, but it's also an opportunity for him to talk about the case, not the individuals involved in the case, not personal attacks, not the juror, everything you said, but the case itself, to be able to say, look, this is a witch hunt. Again, to be able to say, look, this is a quote-unquote persecution. I mean, there's a reason that all of the DAs These are all Democratic strongholds. This doesn't happen in any Republican cities, Republican governors. There's a reason. When you look at where these trials are being brought, it's places that are overwhelmingly Democratic and not Republican. Trump should be able to make that case. And again, in the minds of many people, they may say, look, I can't stand this son of a gun. But the man got a point. Maybe the case should be moved somewhere that's closer to 50-50 versus 80-20. And I think that's a legitimate argument to make.
But this all comes back to the issue we raised earlier, and that is whether or not he's disciplined enough to do what you have just suggested. And I don't know that he is, which raises the fundamental question. I was talking to somebody a couple of days ago about this, and it's one of those things that you'll never get an answer to because Donald Trump is not Socratic enough to be introspective. Socrates once said that the unexamined life is not worth living. I don't think Donald Trump will spend a day in his life being introspective. It's just not his way. So this requires some introspection. It requires looking inward. And again, I don't think he's capable of doing that. Having said that, I wonder in the quiet, still moments, in the middle of the night, when he can't sleep, I wonder whether or not he now has any regrets about how undisciplined he has been. Because it's the lack of discipline that frankly leads to all his bad behavior, his bad mistakes, his breaking the law. He is just so undisciplined in every aspect of his life, save his business acumen. And again, his business acumen ain't all that people or he has chalked it up to be, but you can't hate on him for being a successful businessman. But I wonder whether or not he has come to terms or will ever come to terms with how undisciplined he is. I mean, he's facing in all these cases some serious prison time, all because of his choices, his bad behavior. And I wonder if he ever will come to terms with that, Shermichael. I mean, I don't know. I'm not asking you to, look inside your crystal ball, but it's a fascinating thought. Yeah. At least it is for me.
It is one for me as well, Tavis. You think people who are reflective in their own lives, are reflective on the environment and the world around them, you would think, right, in those moments of quietude, you're assessing and analyzing, man, how did I get this wrong? How did I make these mistakes? Or holy smoke, I really need to learn something out of this. You would think, I think as rational beings, most of us would have the presumption that an intelligent person at some point would get there. Now, we haven't seen any evidence of that, to your point, accurately, of course, with the former president. But Tavis, at 77 years old, man, and you're realizing the litany of charges that you're facing, how this is drying you up of your cash. What does that mean for your children and grandchildren when you're long gone, as you have fewer years ahead of you, more years behind you? You would imagine, Tavis, at some point, he would wake up or he's sitting up and thinking, I got to get this right. If at any moment in time, this is that moment.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it, but we'll see.
Let's come to that point once more when we come forward. I've got a few thoughts about that. Shermichael is making me think, as he always does. Our guest is Shermichael Singleton. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know the United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time? Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The judge in Donald Trump's criminal trial in New York says prosecutors will not have to give advance notice of the witness list to Trump's legal team. In John Juan Merchan's ruling, he says the former president can't be trusted not to post about them. Trump has complained about his gag order, noting prosecution witnesses are allowed to talk about the case, but he can't. Senator Raphael Warnock says his meeting with Pope Francis over the weekend was impactful. The African-American Georgia Democrat who serves as head pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta met with the pontiff at the Vatican, where they discussed how faith informs perspective when engaging in politics. Warnock also said the two discussed the Israel-Hamas war and its impact on the people of Gaza. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Hey, it's Dean Sharp. How does 3 months of free electricity and a lifetime of energy savings sound? Well, it's yours when you go solar with Sunlux. Learn more at sunlux.com, sunlux.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Clippers got the job done without Kawhi Leonard. A sore right knee kept Leonard out of the Clippers' win over Dallas in Game 1 of their first-round playoff series. 5 players scored in double figures. James Harden had 28 points and 8 assists. Despite Leonard's absence, Clippers coach Ty Lue used only 8 players the entire game. Game 2 is Tuesday night at 7 on TNT. The Lakers are trying to let folks know that the Denver Nuggets are not inside their heads. 9 straight losses to the Nuggets have a lot of people wondering if the Lakers can beat the Nuggets. It won't happen if D'Angelo Russell and the rest of the team doesn't shoot better. The Lakers made only 8 of 29 three-pointers in Game 1. Russell was 6 for 20, including 1 of 9 from three-point range. The Lakers need to find their shooting touch in a hurry. Game 2 is tonight in Denver, 7 p.m. tip-off on TNT. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Hello. This is Dr. Rosa Milligan calling authors and business owners to register now for Black Writers on Tour plus Business and Tech Expo Saturday, April 27th, 10 to 3 p.m. at the Carson Community Center.
Authors, aspiring writers, learn how to write, publish, and sell your book. Business owners, let people know where you're at. Call 323-750-3592. It's a free event. You heard right, free. And there's something for everybody. Go to blackwritersontour.com and register today. 323-750-3592.
Literacy and technology is everybody's business. Black Writers on Tour, Saturday, April 27th, 10 to 3 p.m. Admission and parking is free. See you there, 323-750-3592.
Hi, I'm Henry Winkler. My eyes are very important to me. My eyes connect me with everything I love. I loved my late father-in-law dearly. He always lit up a room, but his vision dimmed with age. He had age-related macular degeneration, or AMD. And since partnering with Apellis, I've learned there's an advanced form of dry AMD called geographic atrophy, or GA. His struggle with vision loss made me want to help others know about GA's warning signs. For some, colors appear dull or washed out. For others, hazy or blurred vision make it hard to see details, like fine print on price tags. Many have trouble seeing in the dark, making driving at night difficult. GA gets worse over time and cannot be reversed. If you think you have GA, don't wait. Treatments are available. Ask a retina specialist about FDA-approved treatments for GA and go to GAWon'tWait.com.
Let's get back to more of this rich dialogue with Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Shermichael Singleton, who is host of the Shermichael Singleton Show on SiriusXM, and we are talking politics in this hour, as we tend to do in our first hour every day. But today is uniquely different because today the first ever former president of these United States is being criminally prosecuted in Manhattan. Opening statements today in this case, and we are just trying to figure it out and make sense of it or make the most of it, which is hard to do given how unprecedented it is in the history of this country. Number of comments, I'm sure, Michael, coming in. I want to just read this one because it dovetails nicely with what you and I were discussing earlier. Tavis asked for Trump. Criminal prosecution is very, very sobering. Criminal prosecution is very, very sobering. That said, I don't think it's real for him, at least not yet, because I don't think the penalties to date have had the effect of changing him as it might a reasonable person, in part given his wildly unreasonable support by MAGAs and the Republican Party, frankly. Some folk cross a line. Others cross a line and continue beyond the line so far because they really believe that they are beyond accountability until they are not. Powerful comments from one of our listeners. My sense is that they're probably right, that it just it hasn't sunk in for him yet, and I don't know that it ever will, in part because of what the listener wrote, but also because he has spent a lifetime, to your point at 77, of getting away time and time and time again with everything under the sun, and now it has finally caught up to him. But I was going to say before the break that none of this, ostensibly, none of this, Shermichael, would have happened had he not run for president. And that, you know this because you're a student of history. Most presidents who've gotten into trouble do so in the second term. Every president wants a second term, but you run through the presidents who've gotten into really, really deep stuff, and it tends to happen in the second term. And I've often laughed about the fact, if you had stopped at one term, if you hadn't wanted that second term so bad, you might have left office unscathed. But so much of this stuff starts to unravel on you. Power corrupts, absolute power corrupts, absolutely. They get in trouble in the second term. Donald Trump, as one of our guests made note of on this program last week, Melissa Murray, professor at NYU, out with a new book called The Trump Indictments. She made the point that Donald Trump was engaged in criminal behavior before he ran for office, while he was in office, and after he left office. That's what these 4 indictments cover. These 4 indictments against him cover bad behavior, criminal behavior before he was in office, while he was in office, and stealing those papers and going to Mar-a-Lago after he was out of office. That's a lot of ground to cover, but it suggests to me that you have lived a life where you have perennially gotten away with everything that you have done that you had no business doing. But again, I don't know that he's ever going to come to terms with it. But I do wonder whether he ever considers that none of this would have happened had he not been so thirsty to be president of these United States.
You know, a lot of people close to him that I know well have said that to him. People from the business world. Mm-hmm. You think about the Central Park Five. People who knew about it sort of moved on, but the country writ large didn't know a whole lot about that. Didn't know the incident happened. If he never moved forward with the birtherism against former President Barack Obama, Trump, for the most part, was looked at fondly. I mean, a lot of celebrities happen to be Democrats, invited him to parties. I mean, Elton John performed at one of his weddings. Democrats would come to him for campaign donations, as would Republicans. And so the point that I'm trying to make here is that he was someone, for the most part, who was a well-liked individual. And then he ran for office. And boy, when you get into politics, and I've been in politics for a long time in my young life, the onion will be peeled back, layer after layer after layer. And whatever business you have done or continue to do, everybody's going to find out about it. And I think that's the case with the former president. Now, I do want to say quickly, to the comment that the listener made. I think that's so spot on. And it reminds me, growing up as a kid, my parents would always, give these descriptors about one of my cousins. Great family, both parents are attorneys, best schools, everything. We always got into a ton of trouble. My mom said he's never going to learn because they're always bailing him out. And she said, but he will learn when the bailouts no longer work. And Tavis, that's exactly what happened, man. He ended up going to jail for a couple of years. Just someone got into freaking Harvard College. Didn't go because he was with some friends doing stupid stuff. And now we're older. I'm 33. He's a couple of years older than me. And we talk about this stuff now, and he learned. And so to that point of the listener, it may take something of that magnitude for Trump to finally realize, holy smoke. But I don't know if that's going to even happen, though, Tavis.
Yeah. No, it is fascinating. I'm just struggling trying to find the right word here. It's fascinating when you consider, again, the historic, unprecedented nature of what is happening even as we speak, with the former president being criminally charged. But I've said this many times. I don't want to get involved in trying to, I'm not an armchair psychologist. I don't play one on radio or television. I can't do any sort of pop psychology. But in some ways, to me, there seems to be a chip missing. Donald Trump is just missing a chip. And as I said earlier, quoting Socrates, the unexamined life is not worth living. But you have to be willing to be introspective. And it's not just Donald Trump. I know other folk like that who just have no capacity, no interest whatsoever in being introspective about the lives they're living, about the legacies they're leaving, about the mistakes they continually make. Just no interest whatsoever in being introspective. And I think he has been obviously not well served by his inability to look inward. And again, if you don't run for president, none of this stuff happens. I mean, he's been doing all kinds of stuff in New York, but all this stuff happens, and to that extent, that's why he argues. I mean, it's a hollow argument as far as I'm concerned, but he understands the point I just made, that this doesn't happen if he isn't running for president, and that's why he's calling this election interference. And I want to get your take on that thought, that line that he keeps uttering, that this is election interference. I don't buy it. Are you buying that argument?
I don't buy it, but I get in a political sense to the point that I was making in the last segment, Tavis, how all of these trials or indictments have come out of Democratic strongholds, if you will. I understand how his supporters will say, but look at the statements by A.D. Bragg when he was running, or look at the statements by New York State Attorney Letitia James. Look at the fact that the judge's daughter is working on raising money for the former president's. I mean, you look at those things. I'm not saying that stuff legitimizes or delegitimizes anything. I'm just saying I can see how someone listening to Trump can look at those examples and say, but it is.
Yeah, but I get that. But that's the worst kind of political spin. And when we come forward, I'll tell you why it's such horrible political spin and why I don't buy it. I hear the point, and some have made that case, some being Donald Trump and others, these Democratic strongholds. When we come forward, I'll tell you why that's a bunch of nonsense. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
You're listening to Tavis Smiley. Ranked number 45 on the Heavy 100 list of the 100 most important radio talk show hosts in America.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
Hi, I'm Reverend Gerald, host of Urban Family Focus here on KBLA Talk 1580 on Saturday mornings at 7 a.m. In an effort to help reduce the impact of hypertension in our community, Providence is offering free hypertension assessments. The first 30 people to visit KBLA1580.com and use the link or QR code to register will receive 2 tickets to the Amazing Grace Conservatory presentation of Aladdin, A Whole New World for Real, at the Crenshaw Performing Arts Center, May 25th and 26th. Go to KBLA1580.com right now and be one of the first 30 to register for your hypertension screening and receive 2 tickets to Aladdin, compliments of Providence and KBLA Talk 1580. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
What's up?
I'm tired of feeling so bloated.
That used to be me. Then I got this.
Align Bloating Relief plus food digestion. A probiotic, right?
Yeah, it works naturally with your gut to help soothe occasional bloating and gas. Plus, it has vitamin B12 to aid digestion by helping convert food to cellular energy. 2 benefits, 1 capsule.
Align Bloating Relief plus food digestion from the #1 doctor-recommended probiotic brand. Learn more at alignprobiotics.com.
Sometimes I struggle to get to sleep. My body stopped for the day, but my mind is still running. So I take ZQuil.
ZQuil, the world's #1 sleep aid brand, has a range of non-habit-forming products to fit you and your family's needs. Invest in a great night's sleep for the best you tomorrow.
I'm awake and ready to take on anything.
Better days start with ZQuil nights. Explore our products at ZQuil.com. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Sounds different, huh? This is Tavis Smiley.
This is Tavis Smiley in conversation with Shermichael Singleton, host of his own program, fine program on SiriusXM. Glad to have him in today on this show, talking about politics. And there are a lot of things we could talk about today, but there's only one subject really in this first hour, and that is the criminal prosecution of Donald Trump, which is officially underway, opening statements today. In this case, never before a former president in this country on trial, and we shall see what happens over the next few weeks as this case is put on and this evidence starts to be revealed and unfold. I was saying a moment ago, Shermichael, right quick though, and I want to read another comment from another listener that I want to get your take on. But I was saying a moment ago that I don't buy this argument that this is election interference because these are Democratic strongholds. Let's break down these 4 cases right quick, 3 or 4 of them at least. The case in Washington being brought by Jack Smith is being brought in Washington for all the obvious reasons. It's Washington. It's where DOJ is, where these crimes were committed. January 6th happened. So, yeah, it's a Democratic stronghold, but that's the scene of the crime. In New York State, New York State, where he overinflated the value of his businesses and lied on his statements, et cetera, et cetera. That happened where his businesses are headquartered in New York State. This case with Stormy Daniels and these hush payments, and he and Michael Cohen, this is a New York issue. Fonnie Willis in Atlanta, Georgia. And yes, New York is a Democratic stronghold, but that's the scene of the crime. In Georgia, Fonnie Willis's case, he's the one that called and said, find me the votes. That happened in the state of Georgia. And Atlanta might be a Democratic stronghold, but Georgia is a red state. So I could stop or I could go on. I choose to stop. But that alone should make it clear that argument's got all kind of holes in it, Shermichael Singleton. And I know you were advancing it not necessarily as a personal belief, but the way that you could see how somebody could believe that, but not if they heard what I just said.
Yeah, you know what? That's a good point, Tavis. I did a focus group 2 months ago with some Republicans for a client. My company did, and it was on how Republican voters, particularly MAGA Republican voters, view this. And one thing that a theme that was consistent from all of the participants, you had about 25 of them. They all said, "Well, why can't the judges be like Judge Cannon?" And I thought that was interesting because what that revealed was that while they may not even like that case either with the documents, there is the perception that she's fair. And that's what I think his supporters would say. So when he says, well, like his lawyers were arguing a while ago, a couple of weeks back, that they want to make the argument for the trial to be moved to somewhere else in New York. Because it's unbalanced in terms of the voter makeup in Manhattan, and I do think that if you're articulating that point to Trump supporters, they will say, yeah, I don't like the trial. I don't think the trial should go on. But if it's going to happen, it should be somewhere where there are some people who may actually like Trump.
Yeah.
And so that's the way I think they are rationalizing this.
Yeah.
Not Shermichael, but the way they're rationalizing.
No, to the point of your focus group, this comment now, and we'll give you a chance to respond to it when we come forward. Tavis, Trump supporters do not care. Coupled with the absolute lack of an acceptable alternative candidate being offered to them by the Democrats, none of this will matter. Trump supporters do not care. None of this will matter. I wonder if Shermichael agrees with that Trump supporters just don't care, and that ultimately, no matter what the verdict is, none of this will matter. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Seeking the truth. Speaking the truth. This is the Tavis Smiley Show.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 believes in community empowerment. LA's 99 neighborhood councils form the grassroots level of the Los Angeles city government. The system was created to connect LA's diverse communities to City Hall. While neighborhood council board members are volunteers, they are also public officials elected to office by the members of their community. Neighborhood councils advocate on issues like homelessness, housing, land use, emergency preparedness, public safety, parks, transportation, and sustainability. They also provide local expertise on the delivery of city services to their various communities. Neighborhood councils are open to participation by anyone who is a part of the fabric of daily life in said community. This includes those who live, work, or own property or a business. If you are interested in stepping up to join your local neighborhood council, visit www.empowerla.org. That's empowerla.org. It's time to think globally, but act locally. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Watch out! You got me!
The galaxy is safe once again.
In the pretend universe, kids play with pretend guns. In the real world, it's up to us to make sure they don't get their hands on a real gun. If you have a gun in the house, keep it locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
Don't shave with that, son. You'll get razor bumps.
Nah, Pops. I'm good with Gillette's Skin Guard. How long you been growing that beard anyway? You know Mama hates it.
Yeah, had it since my last wet shave in 77. Got ingrown so bad, looked like I was growing a patch of new noses.
That's why I use the Gillette Skin Guard razor, face scrub, shave gel, and moisturize, so I don't have to worry about new razor bumps or shaving irritation.
Gillette Skin Guard, huh? Your mama's gonna love this one.
Ready to re-examine your assumptions and expand your inventory of ideas? More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
There is some breaking news that does not concern the Trump trial underway now in Manhattan, and I don't have time to get into it with the 4 minutes I have left. with Shermichael, but this is becoming more and more acute across the country. On Yale, on the campus of Yale, they've just arrested dozens of students engaged in Gaza protest. These protests are escalating on campuses all across the country, as you know, and they have just now arrested dozens, or are in fact arresting dozens of students on the campus of Yale. Columbia, as you may know, has already moved to remote classes because of the arrest of students on the campus of Columbia. And now we hear word that Harvard is closing Harvard Yard. You heard Shermichael mention Harvard. His cousin went to Harvard earlier in this conversation. Harvard is closing the renowned Harvard Yard. So students being arrested as we speak on the campus of Yale. Columbia is now in remote classes, and Harvard is closing Harvard Yard. All of that happening because these students are taking to the streets, taking to their campuses, their yards, and protesting the turmoil that continues to escalate in Gaza. There's your breaking news about these protests. We'll get to that, I'm sure, if not later in today's show. Certainly tomorrow we'll get a chance to sort of unpack that. But this is starting to expand and grow exponentially. And the issue of free speech on college campuses is front and center. So, again, maybe on tomorrow's program, we'll get to that. In the 2 minutes I have left here, Shermichael Singleton, sorry for that breaking news. You know how this works, of course. Got to get that stuff out.
That's okay. That's important.
Yeah, when it happens, and we'll talk about it tomorrow, as I said. But your comments from that listener that Trump voters just don't care. And when all is said and done, more will have been said than done, and it just won't matter. Your thoughts?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I just did a focus group in Georgia, and I'm supposed to do another one next week with Arizona Republicans on the abortion issue. And in Georgia, it was on the abortion issue last week, and I asked them if Donald Trump had to change his position on abortion to appeal to a wider electorate, would that bother them? And some of the evangelicals said they wouldn't like it, but they understood, and if that is what he needed to do to win, they would be okay with that. And the most principal concern they have is winning in November. And so whether he's guilty or not guilty in New York or Florida or D.C. or Fulton County, it does not matter because they want to win in November.
So what you're telling me is that they want him to win by any means necessary.
That is correct.
Wow. Yeah, that's I could spend hours just unpacking that reality, starting with the evangelical piece, that you're so such sycophants of this particular person, or put another way, care so much about your bevy of issues that you don't care what.
We got to talk about that one, Tavis.
Yeah.
Next time, I'll send you the data from the.
No, please do.
Let you read over it. Have me back for that. I'd love to talk about that.
I promise I'll make that happen. I want to talk about that. That evangelical piece is fascinating for me, but just beyond that, the fact that you want this guy to be elected so badly, by any means necessary, that nothing else matters. That's scary. That's more scary than a one-issue voter, but I digress for now. His name is Shermichael Singleton, host of his own program, The Shermichael Singleton Show on SiriusXM. Shermichael, good to have you on. I promise we'll have you back once I get a chance to go through that data you're going to send me.
Thank you, Tavis. I'll send that to the team right now, and God bless you, brother.
Thank you, sir. All the best to you. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the